The Thousand True Fans article.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing piece of work. Right. I've quoted it so many times to so many people on this show. It's not even funny. When did you write that? And did you have any idea how it was going to, reverberate around the world?
That's a good question.
It's not a long piece.
No, it's not. And so actually, I had been talking about it for a couple of years before that. I was just sort of playing out the math, the arithmetic, which is mostly all it is. It's just kind of an exploration of the math. And I mean, I would when I would meet people from the music industry, I would kind of inquire to them about some of the independent artists, trying to see if there's any evidence for this idea. And so after a couple of years, I decided that I didn't have enough answers or evidence, and that I would just write it up, basically asking people if they had any ideas. And part of this was also trying to suggest ways in which those would be funded, because this was long before Kickstarter. And I was trying to also research to see whether there was economic or funding models that would work for somebody. And so I finally kind of just decided I was going to do this, and I put it out saying, basically, does anybody know anybody who's actually doing this, and how are they doing it? And that was the impetus to write it down. And then I did a couple follow-ups because I heard back from people who knew people who were doing or trying it, and people who were trying to start these funding sites to make that happen. So it was several years in gestation, and no, I had no clue that it was going to work. That's true for anybody who does anything kind of like on a long-term basis, like a radio show or music. It's like you can never really guess which one of your creations will hit. It makes no, you can't. Artists have the same thing. They write song after song, and then suddenly one is like, oh my gosh, you're a genius. It's like, I've been writing songs for 20 years, where have you been? Whatever. And even movies are the same thing. I mean, I would say that if there was a person who had this unique, magical, genie-like ability to actually point to the ones that were going to succeed, you'd be a billionaire. Because Hollywood, they don't know which ones are going to work. Book publishers don't know which books are going to take off.
Keep creating.
You have to just kind of keep doing it again and again and again and again.
And for people that haven't read the article, if you had to summarize it in 3 quick points, what would you say is the Thousand True Fans? And then also, do you have anything to add to it in the last 5 years?
So the basic thing is a very simple premise, which is that technology allows us to have someone who's a creator, and that could be a writer, a filmmaker, musician, a sculptor, photographer, anybody who's creating something. Technology allows us to actually interact with our customers directly. In the past, you'd sell a book, and there'd be a publisher and a bookseller, and someone would buy your book, but you'd have no connection as the author with that person. But now you can sell a book, even if you don't sell them directly. They can have an email. They can contact you on an ongoing basis. And so the premise is simply that if you have that kind of ability to connect with your audience directly, and you don't have all these other people involved with publishers and music studios and everybody, if you're actually creating and dealing directly with them, that the numbers that you need to actually get a living are very small. And I call those people that are going to be most valuable to you true fans, because the true fans are fans that will purchase anything that you produce in all the varieties, all the different editions, all the different venues, whatever it is, anything you do, they're going to support you in it. If you don't need very many of those kinds of people, and by my calculation, for a single creator, you need about 1,000. If you can produce $100 worth of goods a year, then 100 times 1,000 is $100,000. That's a living, okay? And so that's the basic idea. Now, you have to adjust that by lots of different things, because you have expenses you have to subtract. If you have more than one person as a duo, you have to multiply by 2. And the important thing, though, is that number is actually not critical. It's the order of magnitude. It says you don't need 1 million fans to make a living if you have direct contact with them. You don't need even 100,000. You need it in the thousands. And the second thing about that I would say is that that's not for everybody, because there's a lot of work involved in dealing with your fans. There's a lot of work in connecting with them and servicing them directly. And not everybody wants that. Some authors or artists, they don't want to become a social media guy or a person or a girl. They want to paint in their studio. And so for them, they need to have somebody involved. So you have to add a layer and you have to adjust those numbers in some capacity. So it's not for everybody, but it's a possibility. And even if you have help, you're still in that order of magnitude. What have I learned since then? I think there are it's a viable goal. It's still a tough way to, I mean, it still takes a lot of work to get there without the help of people from outside. You're kind of a good example of somebody who's doing that. Most of the people who started doing it came from the Hollywood studios or the music labels or book publishers, and then decided to take their kind of existing audience and let go of that and go to it directly. There's fewer people who rise from the bottom, but there are enough now that I know for certain that this works. You know, Hugh Howey, who's a science fiction author, started with Amazon Kindle, and he became a best-selling author, and he still has people publishing his book, but he's still basically a true fan, thousand true fan person from the beginning. He still starts by selling his stuff to the customers directly first. And so there are people who can, enough examples in all the different media that we know this is possible.
Right.
And I think what we need is more role models, people to kind of become known as, well, they're doing it this way.
And I think one of the biggest points of that article is that by focusing on those 1,000 true fans, you'll find that message that resonates,
right,
as opposed to trying to please a million people.
Exactly.
And then if you can resonate with those 1,000, then that will scale.
Right.
And yeah, it's something we think about around here all the time. You know, we have, funny enough, an academy that's at around 1,000 right now. And so, you know, we just constantly service those people. And yes, it's actually very difficult.
Right,
you have to deal with people. You have to keep them happy. But it also keeps you on that cutting edge of knowing what's going on.
You're absolutely right. That direct contact makes you honest and makes you really focus on delivering value versus just kind of going through the motion.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.